interacting with that day. So life is a series of just solving one problem after another. Sometimes problems are a little more difficult. So, we might ask our wife, what do you think I should wear? Or if the kid is misbehaving a lot, we might ask a neighbor or a younger sibling, how did you deal with this with your kids? Asking for help is a good thing, right? The harder problems, people might go to their smartest friends, even their clergy. Clergy are a first line defense with dealing with problems. And if they're good, they'll have a list of people to refer to. But the hardest problems of all are the ones we take to a professional who is trained in solving problems. And so that's why we call what I do solution-focused family systems therapy. I want to know where they want to be at the end of therapy, and then I will create a map to get them there. So tell me in a sentence or two, Dawn, why don't you go first since you called me? Tell me, what is it you're having a problem with?
Well, I'm really not having a problem. It's Linda who has a problem. I know I called you, and because she wouldn't, and I knew she really wanted to. And but Linda thinks that I don't pay enough attention to her, that I ignore her all the time, and that when she talks to me, I'm always doing something. And as a matter of fact, when she chooses to talk to me, I am doing something else. So I'm doing this. You should look over and see, oh, he's doing that. So I won't disturb him now. But no, she doesn't. And then she gets mad at me for not responding to it.
So when she gets mad at you, Dawn, what happens?
Well, sometimes a little hysteric. Sometimes she, won't talk to me for a while. It just ignores me after that, like I ignored her. So that seems to be the problem.
I see, and I'm going to get to the chase here. And so, how long does that last?
Pardon?
How long does it last?
Well,
when she's angry with you?
Not long. I mean, we are not ones to hold grudges.
And how does what changes that she stops being angry?
Pardon?
What changes? What causes her to stop being angry?
She relaxes, and she talks to me normally, and I can tell that we're okay now.
Okay. Do you mind if I talk to Linda for a couple of minutes now?
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to anyway.
Yes.
Linda, you've been very patient. Thank you for waiting. How do you see things going between the two of you?
Well, he seems to be very busy doing what he wants to do. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse. I could go back in history and tell a whole bunch of stories, but now that he's home and more often, and anyway, he's obsessed with watching sports all the time. And if I try to talk forever, I try to look at him, he's got that damn phone in front of him, looking at his phone all the time. And he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't hear what I'm saying. Yes, it is. Well,
it is not.
Okay, so I'm going to skip the family and the history, and I'm going to move ahead. But normally, I would take 2 or 3 sessions with this couple to learn more about the kind of family they grew up in, because I want to know what their parents were like and what it was like growing up for them, and I want to know also what were the significant relationships they've had before they found each other, and how they ended, because that will help me see if there's a pattern that I can address. And I'll also want to know, and this is just a secret of the trade, if they've seen other therapists or talked to their friends about this or anybody else, and what they've suggested. Because I don't want to look foolish making a suggestion that they've already failed, that's not worked, right? So we'll go through all of that, and then by the second or at the latest the third session, I'm going to address everything that they've told me in this way. Dawn and Linda, having listened to you and thought a lot about what you've told me, if you're willing to listen to me now, I would like to give you a new lens through which to look at this problem that you've been dealing with for some time. Is that okay? Are you willing to do that?
All right with you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So in order, I'm gonna, let's see. Okay, oh, here. Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, I'm sharing a screen. What you might do is change your view from gallery view to...
Right, but you're not sharing the screen yet.
Oh, open, cancel. Have we shared the screen?
You haven't.
If I click share, open system preferences, it says.
What? No, you
Or
click
cancel.
screen, then you select which window you want to share, and then you click on share. So you see share screen at the bottom.
Yeah.
And when you click on that, you should see a window with a bunch of...
Oh, I think I see what I did wrong. Okay, first I have to open the whiteboard.
Well, you select the whiteboard and then you click on share.
Right. I did it in the wrong order.
Okay, let's try again. You click on share screen. Then
Share screen. I've got share screen. Now I'm clicking on whiteboard.
click on whiteboard and then click on share, which is on the lower right of the screen. You see share?
I'm not getting it. It's not happening.
Okay, well, I'll do it. Okay, now you should be able to edit on that screen. Can you edit on that?
No. Just a moment. Oh, now. Yeah, I think I have the whiteboard now.
Well, I brought
Okay. All right. So,
it. Can you edit text on it?
yeah, I'm pretty sure I can. Well, I just lost the menu bar that was there. Oh, come on.
Okay, let me unshare my whiteboard and why don't you try to do it again? Okay, so click on share screen.
Share screen.
And now the third option should be whiteboard, and click and select.
Second option, but okay.
Click the whiteboard.
I did.
And now in the lower right part of the screen, there's a button that said share.
And a window comes up that says allow Zoom to share your screen. Open system preferences, security, and privacy to grant access.
Yeah, you need to configure that. Okay.
What happened when I was practicing yesterday?
Well, and you didn't.
So now I'm in security and privacy.
Oh God.
Just run down the street, Brand. He's only half a block away.
When I share the screen, I'll share the whiteboard, and I think that all of us can edit it. Okay, so I just edited it. Jonathan, try and draw something on it.
It's not happening. But I don't see those options across the top that I should see. That you know, a text, a draw, all those things aren't there on my screen, Brand.
Jonathan, you need to go to annotate.
So what?
Annotate?
I need to go to what?
Annotate. Under view options up at the top, down near the bottom, it says annotate.
Yeah, but he's not seeing that annotate option. That's the problem.
Anybody besides me edit this whiteboard?
Do you like push your mouse all the way to the top of the Zoom screen? Does that pop up? The view options?
Oh,
Okay.
view options. Annotate.
Brand, why don't you try to
I got it. Okay, I got it. Now I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, clear.
I'll clear the screen.
I can't.
I bet we could play Pictionary.
That's right.
Serious.
Okay,
Good.
fine. Okay, Don and Linda, you with me?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I want to explain this to you, and we're going to see. I'm going to just describe a hypothetical situation. People call me all the time, and they tell me some problem, right? So I'm going to make up a problem just as a to illustrate. The guy might say, you know, Dr. Gerard, every once in a while when I get undressed for bed, I take off my socks and throw them on the floor. And my wife just goes berserk. I don't understand what the big deal is, but it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while it does. And a couple of weeks ago, when I did it, she started screaming at me again. How many times have I asked you to put your socks in the hamper? I can't stand this. You're treating me like the maid. I'm not your maid. Why don't you ever listen to me? If you do it again, I'm going to ask you to leave. I can't stand being disrespected like this. And I did it again last night. I did it again last night. And so that's why I'm calling. So I'll invite the two of them to come in and they'll tell me the problem. And let's see, I'm going to now diagram the problem. Brand, did you just do something?
Sorry, I was just playing around.
Oh, stop playing around, Brand.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Here's the diagram of the problem. Okay?
Okay.
Now, so I'll say to the husband, well, what happened? What happens when you throw your socks on the floor? And
Well, usually
That's
she
it.
picks them up and puts them in the hamper. And so, you know, I don't think it's such a big deal, you know, but obviously,
wait a second, hold it. I'm going to get to you in a minute, Dawn. I'm talking about this hypothetical couple right now.
oh, okay.
Okay, this is important.
All right.
So this hypothetical couple will say, you know what happens when I throw my socks on the floor? She makes me sleep in the den. Oh, I see. Well, what was going on before you threw your socks on the floor? I'll ask. And inevitably, they'll tell me some version of this. Everything was fine. What? I don't get it. Everything was fine. I'm pretending not to get it. Everything was fine. You threw your socks on the floor, and then everything was not fine. Well, tell me, Rand, can I get rid of this stupid arrow?
I don't know. We got so many problems. Let's just keep going.
Okay. How long did you slept on the sofa? How long was she angry with you? And every couple has its own rhythm, but he might say typically, well, she didn't talk to me until morning. And I'll say, so tell me what happened in the morning that changed? And he'll say this.
You want us to say?
He apologized.
Oh, yeah, apologize.
I see. He apologized. And well, what happened after he apologized?
Mm-hmm.
And some version of this will then be told to me. Everything was fine. So, okay, everybody. This is the neurotic circle that describes every relationship that has a recurring problem. A single, you know, we all screw up all the time. That's expected. And those aren't problems. You know, you say you're sorry, you fix whatever it is you did. It is. But when it occurs again and again and again, it's a problem. And so that's when it requires fixing. And they see socks as the problem. Every once in a while, he does this bad thing, right? But now look at this. When things are fine, what does that mean? It means they're close. They're intimate. They feel a love for each other. And when things are not fine, what does this mean? They're distant, they're separate, they're apart. Okay? This is the dynamic that I see occurring. And I have to find out what's going on that makes it, oh dear, that was, oh, no. No.
It's fine. Just keep going.
No. I need the eraser here. There. Yeah, I did it. Okay, so I want to know what this is all about. And now we get to the core of therapy. I will explain to Dawn and to Linda, or whoever I'm talking to, that when couples come together, no matter how close or similar they are, they have to accommodate to each other's differences because everyone is a unique human being. And it's in the successful or not accommodations to each other that will determine whether or not they have a successful relationship. And in my experience, there are 3 different levels of accommodation that have to occur. And the terms I give to them are easy, difficult, and the most difficult of all. Okay. The easy ones have to do with division of labor in the family. And I say that's easy, even though it's not always easy, because I don't know anyone that got divorced because the husband was a total slug and wouldn't help out with housework. Because today, most husbands will agree they should do their fair share, even if they don't really do it. But let me ask you, Dawn, since we're doing this therapy, and Linda, how do things go in the house? How do the chores get divided up? Dawn and Linda?
I do all the hard, sweaty stuff. All the cleaning up after.
Lawn mowing.
I'm sorry, what?
I see you mowing the lawn.
No, that's woman's work.
So, okay, so
And
Linda, is that okay?
I cook. But now we're getting too real. I don't do anything. I play tennis. I go out to the bar with my buddies after work. And I come home and I expect a warm meal when I get there.
So let me ask you, is this a problem or is this something that the 2 of you are okay with?
I don't think it's a problem.
Oh, you think it should be obeyed?
I am he who should be obeyed. Exactly.
Linda, is this a problem for you? You've been doing this for a long time.
What?
Linda, I'm asking if Linda is okay with this
Are
arrangement.
you okay with that?
No.
Linda,
No,
does
I'm
it
not happy with it at all.
does it lead to
I
conflict?
think it's unfair.
She's even mentioned divorce.
Do you argue over it, Linda?
I guess it was
Does it lead to
someone in
arguing?
my family gets divorced.
Well, you did mention it one time.
Well,
Or you're just trying to
feel like
scare
it,
me,
you
I
know.
guess.
Well, we may come back to this.
Oh,
It's not why you called, and so it seems to me you've lived with it this way for so long. It may be that you just accepted it the way it is. If you want to talk about it, I'll be happy to, but I want to go on to the more difficult accommodations. Okay?
fine.
Okay. Linda, or either of you, let me know if you really are unhappy with that arrangement and want to talk some more about it. Okay, so the difficult accommodations people make have to do with the baggage they bring to the relationship. That is to say, their ideas of what's normal and not normal. And there's no such thing as normal, right? So where do we get this notion of normal? It comes from the family we grew up in, right? And since the 2 people will have come from different families, they will possibly have different expectations then of each other based on the family they grew up in. And I'm going to just pick 3 of these areas to explore with Dawn and Linda. One of them is money. If Linda came from a family where mom paid the bills, and Dawn came from a family where mom paid the bills, then they may never even have discussed it before getting married. They may just both assume that the woman in the family pays the bills and there'd be no problem. And if Linda's dad paid the bills and Dawn's dad paid the bills, they would both grow up assuming that the man pays the bills and they might do the same thing without any problem. But what if Linda's mother paid the bills and Dawn's father paid the bills in the families they grew up in? You see, for each of them, being an adult male or female includes being in charge of the money, right? And so it looks like a power struggle in the relationship, but it's really an identity struggle. And it requires discussion and a negotiation over how this is going to be worked out. In fact, if Don's mother paid the bills and Linda's father paid the bills, they might be repossessing the home after a few months because neither of them paid the bills. Right. So let me just stop here and ask you, Don and Linda, are issues around money a problem that leads to conflict?
Yes, I think so. She has the checkbook. I have some bills I do online. But basically I just do the bills and that's about all. And other than that, Linda has control of all the spending.
Is there any problem? Go ahead, Linda.
Do you have any problems? I don't.
Well, actually, I used to pay all the bills. I mean, with our money, not.
It is our money, though.
I know. And, but then after he retired, I gave him, I wanted him to have a job and feel like he was doing something, contributing.
Yay for me.
And I don't think he's always faithful with the bills.
I am sometimes slow.
Let me ask you this. Do you have a rule, written or unwritten, probably unwritten, that neither of you will spend a certain amount of money beyond a certain amount of money without checking with the other, discussing it with the other? Could Linda go out and buy a motorcycle without talking to you about it?
I don't think a motorcycle.
You did ask for a motorcycle.
No.
Oh.
But I asked. That's the point. I didn't just go.
A motorcycle or a waterbed or something. And I chose the waterbed because I don't think you usually die in those.
Did you discuss it first?
Yeah, we discussed that, but
he gives me those kind of alternatives.
I will tell you this. I have to admit this. I am impulsive.
All right. Solterra wants to know.
I'm an impulsive buyer. If I have the money and I see something and I want it, I buy it, and that's it.
Does it lead to conflict?
He wins.
Okay. Let's go on.
She's not real happy about it.
I don't want to cost you money with extra sessions that you don't need. It seems to me this isn't a big issue in the relationship, so let's go on.
Yeah.
And another area of difficult accommodation besides money is alcohol. You can understand that if they both came from families where dad came home and the first thing he did was pop a beer, and on a free weekend he would drink all weekend, and go on vacation meant freedom to drink a lot. That would seem normal to the husband. And if her father did the same thing, it would seem normal to both of them. And if they both came from families where the parents were teetotalers and they might have a sip of champagne on New Year's Eve, to them that would be normal. But what if one came from a family where there was a lot of heavy drinking? And we're not talking alcoholism, I'm just talking about enjoying a lot of drinking. And one came from a family where there wasn't very much drinking, how they would have different notions of normal. And how the one might think, oh my God, I married an alcoholic and I never realized it. And the other might think, loosen up, my God, have a drink once in a while. And it could lead to disappointment in each other or conflict. So let me just pause briefly and ask Don and Linda if drinking has ever, is there a pattern around drinking that leads to conflict and arguments?
I don't have,
Yes.
but yes.
Oh my God. All right. Well,
There's
So-
a
I see
pattern. You drink.
I drink, but yeah, but I can handle what I drink.
Oh. Actually, I come from a non-drinking family, and he comes from the German-Polish drinking family.
no, that explains everything. Linda, we're going to come back to that in the next session if you want to talk about it.
You know,
Okay. So
anyway,
a third area of normal, the baggage we bring to the relationship, has to do with what I'll call public displays of affection. if they both came from families where the parents were unself-conscious and hugged and kissed and would give each other a pat on the tush whenever they wanted, didn't matter who was looking, then they too would probably see that as normal. And if they both came from families where parents were very reserved and never showed affection towards each other when others were around, then that self-consciousness about affection would probably seem normal to both of them. But what if one came from a very affection-showing family and the other from a very reserved set of parents? Again, you can see how they would misinterpret or overinterpret each other's behavior, right? She might think, you won't even hold my hand when we go to the mall. You must not really love me, right? And he might think, holy cow, we're not teenagers anymore. Cool your jets. You see, so expectations of affection also can lead to unhappiness and conflict in the marriage. So this is another area where they have to accommodate to each other's expectations, negotiate new expectations that are unique to the two of them, as with money, as with alcohol. And often people will bring problems to therapy in any of these difficult areas. All right. But you didn't. The problem you brought to me actually has to do with the third and the most difficult level of accommodation. And that's what I want to talk about for the rest of the session. Human beings all have needs. And among our needs are two that are especially difficult to accommodate because they are opposites. The more of one we need, the less of the other, and vice versa. These are the two. Human beings are social creatures. Human beings need contact with other human beings. When you put a person in solitary confinement, they go crazy in just a few days. We all need connection to each other, with rare exception. But human beings are also unique individuals with their own personal boundaries, and they need space. Every human being needs connection, togetherness with others, and space to themselves. And every human being has a unique balance of those two needs in their temperament. They're born with a temperament that is influenced by events in their life, right? So let me, can I do this here? No, I need a pencil first. Let me draw a theoretical or hypothetical spectrum. I'm going to call it a intimacy spectrum. Here's the midpoint. Okay, so here's on the spectrum, here's 1, and here's 100. Can I do this 100? Yeah. Okay, I did it. Now, I could just as easily have called this a autonomy spectrum, but for the sake of discussion, I'm going to call it an intimacy spectrum. In our Western culture, and possibly in all human culture, women tend to be somewhere around here, around 75. That means that in terms of their need for intimacy, it's about 7, let's say for a hypothetical weekend when both are home, the typical Western woman would prefer to spend about 75% of the time, 3/4 of the time, doing things with her husband or a partner, because I don't think this is really I don't think it applies only to heterosexual couples. This partner would prefer to spend about 75% of the time with their partner, meaning 25% of the time doing things on his or her own. See? And men tend to be in our culture, perhaps all human culture, down here somewhere, say around 25. meaning that when they have a free weekend, they would ideally spend 25% of the time doing things with their partner and 3/4 of the time doing stuff on their own, whether it's mowing the lawn or watching a football game or going out with friends, whatever it is. They working in the garage on a project, work, to catching up on work. So you see what I'm saying here? And it could be a third of the clients I see, it's reversed. It's the woman who's down here and the man who's up here. And I wonder about that. A woman who doesn't want a lot of time in intimate relationship with her partner, it leads me to hypothesize that something happened growing up in her family. Maybe her mother listened to her phone calls, read her diary, intruded on her boundaries, so that this was a woman who wanted to get away from home as quickly as possible. And for her, intimacy is dangerous. And so she builds a wall around herself and protects herself from intimacy because it violates her boundaries. So that can happen. And men who are totally, ignored by their parents might be very needy for affection and be up here, attention, right? So I'm not being dogmatic about this, but I'm just laying out a hypothetical situation. Now, this is a hypothetical couple that are married and they love each other. The guy, typically now, he's 25, say. That means that he's relatively independent. If he wants to go see a movie and she doesn't want to go with him, he might say, well, do you mind if I go alone? Right? If she wants to go see a movie and he says, that's not my kind of movie, I'm not interested, she's more likely to stay home, right? To her, being with her partner is more important. To him, doing the task is more important. Okay? And you can see how this can lead to some disappointment in marriage. They might think, I married somebody who said they loved me. I thought I was going to have sex whenever I wanted it. Or I thought my husband was going to want to hear my every word, my every thought. And it turns out sometimes he doesn't. So they're a little disappointed because no marriage is perfect. But they love each other, and by and large, they get along. And here's how they get along. They not only have this hypothetical ideal balance between intimacy and space, they have a comfort range that might look like this for the guy. And she'll have a comfort range as well that might look like this for her. And if that means that ideally she'd like to spend 75% of a free weekend with him, but she can spend only half the time, even less if necessary, and be okay. And ideally he'd spend only 25% of the time listening to her talk about his mother, but he can give her more attention than he would like because he loves her and he knows it'll bring peace or whatever. And if you notice, their comfort zones overlap. And in a successful marriage, this is where they operate, in the overlap of their comfort zones. Each of them not perfectly happy, but satisfied enough that they can get along. It only works until stress enters the system. What happens when stress enters the system? Let's say he comes home and she sees on her husband's face immediately he's had a horrible day at the office. What does she do? She runs over and gives him a huge hug. Honey, you look like you've had a terrible day. Tell me what happened. But when you're stressed, the autonomic nervous system kicks in to reduce the stress. How does it do it? Well, for him, that means he's going to want more space to reduce the stress. But what has she done? She's glommed onto him. Tell me what's happened. His response is going to be to reduce the stress more. I don't want to talk about it. I've been dealing with it all day. I just want to be left alone. She. That stresses her. Honey, I love you. No, tell me what happened. I want to share it. I don't want to share it. Don't you ever listen to me? You're all over me like white on rice. No, you never talk to me. You're a cold fish. And you see what they've done? They've pushed each other out of the overlap zone where they normally live, and they've polarized. And the same thing with her. She can walk in the door and he sees on her face she's had a horrible day. What did he do? How many times have I asked you to leave your problems at work? Can't we just have a peaceful dinner? No, you got to hear what my coworker said about me, or what the boss said, or I dropped a whole tray of test tubes. You're not going to believe what happened. I don't want to hear about it. I just want to have a nice quiet dinner. And again, by her demanding intimacy in her stress, it pushes him, who needs space when he's stressed, it pushes him out of the overlap zone. Okay? And again, they're polarized. That's what happens. That's what happens in marriages that have continual conflict. So imagine knowing this. The husband sees, where's the camera? The husband sees the wife walk in the door. She's had a horrible day. You can see on her face. If instead he thinks, oh, my wife is a 75 or an 80, whatever she is, when she's stressed, she needs closeness. She needs a hug. And he runs to the door, gives her a big hug, and says to her, honey, I love you. You're home. It's safe now. Everything's going to be okay. In that hug, the stress would drain out of her. And with the less stress, it brings her back to that comfort zone. And the same thing with him. He walks in the door. She sees how horrible he's whatever he's experienced. If she could just think, oh my God, my husband is a 25. When he's upset, he's going to need space. And she overcomes her own instinct, her own impulse to hug him and share the problem, and says instead, honey, you look like you've had a horrible day. Why don't you go read the paper, watch the news, walk the dog, whatever. I'll make dinner. And if you feel like talking about it later, I'll be glad to listen. She gives him what he needs, not what she needs. That will reduce the stress he's experiencing and bring him back to the overlap zone where they function okay. So now you see what's going on the whiteboard. This particular night, the guy's getting ready for bed and his wife starts in, as she often does, complaining about his mother or her day or him or whatever it is. And he's tired. He doesn't want, you know what? He doesn't want an hour of foreplay. He may just want a quickie. He may not want anything at all. He maybe just wants to be left alone and go to sleep. But she is asking for intimacy. Everything is fine. She's loving him. She thinks she can share her concerns with him. Something inside him that he's not even aware of whispers, just throw your socks on the floor. You'll get what you want. And sure enough, he throws his socks on the floor. She sends him to the den, and he gets to go to sleep without anything else. The socks on the floor turns out not only it's not a problem, throwing his socks on the floor is a solution to the problem that he wants space. Now, the next time he throws his socks on the floor, she's going to say, oh, sweetheart, you don't want to hear about your mother today? Okay, I love you. You can just go to sleep. We don't have to talk about her tonight. I've not only detoxified, I've added the problem, I've added humor to it. Because now she realizes it's got nothing to do with his ignoring her. And he realizes that it's a solution that gives him space, but it's a dysfunctional solution, because every time he apologizes, there are the two P's in apology. Anyway, every time he apologizes, she trusts him less because it keeps happening. And so that's why eventually they have to come to get some help. The problem embedded in this neurotic cycle is the problem that's illustrated in this failure to find a proper compatible balance between intimacy and autonomy, intimacy and space that every couple needs. And so now in our therapy session with Dawn and Linda, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them each 2 pieces of paper, and I'm going to have them rate each other on the scale, intimacy scale. And we're not going to do that here because I don't have paper and I can't, and I'm not in their living room. But I'm going to just go to the shortcut. Linda, let's do you first. You rate yourself on the scale, and Dawn, you rate Linda. And Linda's going to say something like, I'm a 60, and Dawn's going to say something like she's an 80, and I'm going to say, okay, this isn't scientific. For the sake of discussion, we're going to just compromise and put you at 70. Okay, and now let's do Dawn. And Dawn's going to say, oh, I'm a perfect husband. I'm a 50. No, he's going to admit he's a 40. He knows he likes to watch TV and not be disturbed. Linda's going to say he's a 10 from what she's told me. Okay, so I'm going to say, well, for the sake of discussion, let's just average it out, and we're going to call Dawn a 35.
What?
Okay, and now I'm going to say to them, let's look and see if you have an overlap zone and what it looks like. And that's where the conversation takes place. And that's how I save the marriage, because now, instead of defending their behavior, now they're looking to see how they can, how they can bring each other back to the overlaps, into that overlap zone. It's almost a religious metaphor, because it means instead of thinking about yourself, if you think about your partner and your partner's needs, you reduce the partner's stress, bring them back to the overlap zone where they can meet your needs, and vice versa. Okay, I talked too long. It took us too long to figure out how to talk. But we have time. Questions?
May I say something before we do this?
Of course.
September 1st was our 58th anniversary.
Mazel tov, we say.
You know that. And the other thing, Jonathan, don't forget my cookies.
Can you see them behind me on the calendar?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Promise some cookies?
See the cookies?
Jonathan, didn't you promise me cookies?
Yeah, to make you cookies for you to do that?
They had fried.
Oh, that's right. There was something about cookies.
Okay, I'm gonna
Maybe that was the winner of the person.
on screen share. Can I do that?
No, because
Oh yeah,
you shared it. Do you want me to unshare it?
yeah, unshare it. I'm
Okay.
gonna go to gallery view. And now raise your hand if, okay, Judith, what do you want to ask?
When you were talking about how women have a greater need for intimacy than men, and that's the way they would like to allocate their time at the weekend.
Remember, I qualified it, and about a third of the time.
I get it. But what I wanted to ask is, does having children absorb some of that, you know, that extra 50% capacity that women have, so that they're not on their own, but they're not bugging their husband?
What a terrific question. Somebody else answer. Somebody else. Who can answer, Judith?
The intimacy or the desire between husband and wife, does that change when children are
Well, of
born?
course.
She's asking, does taking care of children all day long wear her out, that she's going to need space where she would otherwise, without children, have wanted to spend the time with her husband? Right, Judith?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the love in itself is now transferred to the children.
Judith, I'll tell you something you don't want to hear. When a couple has their first child, it's a real crisis in many marriages because the husband is used to getting his wife's total attention. And now that they have a child, something changes in her biologically, that her focus is on that child. That child's survival depends on mom knowing everything that's happening to the child, that infant. By dinner time, she may not even have changed into clothes from her bathrobe yet, right? And so the husband goes from getting total attention to getting no attention. And that can lead to problems in the relationship. So as unfair as it is, mothers need to know this, new mothers need to know this, to make sure their husbands get some minimal attention. But husbands need to know that that's not fair, and they need to relieve the mother so that she can recharge your batteries and have.
Well, I understand that, but let's assume we're talking about 6-year-olds or 8-year-olds that, you know, are not babies, that are there people that can entertain you so that dad can watch the football. Does that, you know, take care of some of that problem?
Well, I'm going to ask everyone here, what's your experience with intermediate age children? Does that reduce your ability to be in an intimate, by which I mean just conversation, whatever, intimate, or, you know, it might also just drain you that there's no sex anymore because you're so tired, right? Does that affect the intimate relationship with your partner when you have children? It has to, doesn't it? You can't not influence something.
Well, you have to be ready for someone bursting into the door and climbing in bed with you.
Are you speaking from experience?
Oh, yes. We had a friend, and she was saying, she's in the middle, you know, with her husband, and she said, all of a sudden, I felt a third arm on my back, and I knew there was something wrong. I remember one of our children opening the door and saying, oh, and shutting the door and leaving.
They grew up fast.
That's a great question. Okay, other questions?
Well, you didn't really give me an answer.
The answer is yes.
Oh.
But I'm speaking from my experience. Other people might be energized by the children. And
So Jonathan, what is the single greatest insight?
okay, now, without any questions, we'll get to that final issue. The current family therapy, couples therapy guru is named John Gottman. He has a apartment in Seattle that he calls his love lab, and he has his clients, his couple clients, spend a weekend in the love lab where there are video cameras all over the place, and he watches them, and he has all these mathematical equations based on their behavior that he claims he can predict with 83% accuracy whether they'll make it or not. And his book, 7 Steps to Successful Marriage, is just terrific for everybody. It explodes some of the myths about marriage, and it really is very, very helpful. For example, from watching the couple in the love lab, Don, pay attention. If the wife says something to the husband while he's watching TV or reading the paper, he needs to stop what he's doing and look at her and listen to her as if she was the only human being left on the earth. If he doesn't, that indicates some problem.
No, like you do.
Now, here's the answer to the question that Brand wants me to answer. At the very beginning of John Gottman's research, many, many years ago, he wanted to see what kind of therapy helped clients, what technique helped clients be better in their relationships. Across all branches of therapy, whether it was Freudian or analytical or Jungian or object relations or whatever, he had a hypothesis that improving communication in a marriage would make the marriage better. And he called it reflective communication. Flo says something, Tom repeats it to make sure that he heard it correctly, and then he responds. And then Flo repeats what she heard Tom say to make sure she heard it correctly, and then she responds. And then he surveyed 100,000 people, and he asked them all these questions about their relationship because he wanted to see what would correlate with happy marriages. Now, I don't really believe much in self-reporting, but when both of them say they're happily married, who's to argue, right? So he looks at the data from his survey, and he finds no correlation between reflective communication and happy marriages. He found only one factor that correlated positively with couples where they both said that they were happily married. And that's what we've asked you to guess.
Chocolate.
It wasn't chocolate.
He said chocolate.
Did you all look at, I haven't looked at the chat.
So the answers are from Patricia, gratitude. From Lois, yes, dear. From Luke, curious. From Patricia, yes, dear, again. From Shahar, to be listened to. From Alan, communication. From Florence, surprise. Kathy also says communication. I said humor, and then Vicky said yes, dear, and Shahar says wonderful. That's for something else. So those are the guesses.
Okay, well, none of you are right, but yes, dear came closest. It depends who the dear is. I'm stereotyping, but probably it meant that the husband says yes, dear, to the wife. Is that what you meant?
Well, that was from Patricia.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can count this as right. All right. So the Boston Globe reported on this early research, so I have documentary evidence of the answer.
Husbands giving in.
I just put it up. What was it?
Husbands giving in.
Oh.
And we all knew that.
Now they don't,
Wise choice.
they don't say why, and I'm not sure it's even true anymore. Anyone hypothesize why that? You'd think
it eliminates conflict.
You'd think they compromise, they'd alternate. The wife always wins? How can that be?
Well, it depends on how important.
Because the wife knows that.
Well, in some ways, yes. Anybody else want to speculate? Sue? Sue, are you raising your hand?
Me? No.
Yes.
Actually, I remember in my parents' marriage that my mother did get her way almost all the time, unless it was something bigger. Then my father would step in.
And how did that go?
Oh, they seemed to get on fine.
Oh, good.
I mean, people didn't get divorced in those days. So, I don't know what fine means by today's.
Well, you knew if they were happy.
Oh, I don't know. They never looked particularly excited or.
It's not
They were just my parents,
Well,
who else wants to speak?
I think the male, the husband, his opinions prevail on the important things like world peace and the various political things like that. And then the wife prevails on everything else.
Well, Don, I'm going to save your reputation and ask you to just stop right there.
I mean, I think there's something there in that, and I think that this is probably changing, in that men, we've lived in a sort of male-dominated political and social sort of outside the home society, and traditionally the sort of compromise, up until the 1960s, was that women controlled the home, right? That's the traditional kind of system that existed for a few hundred years, and so the husband's giving in within the home because they get to call the shots outside of it. I mean, but obviously that's changing a lot. So I don't know how valid this is, but I think that 30, 40 years ago, that made a lot of sense to people, and sort of that would be my speculative answer.
Anybody else?
Husbands just don't want to deal with conflict with their wives.
I can't believe you're saying it. My theory is just the opposite, Don. I think women are the peacemakers, and most decisions are not important, so they just go along. So when they do speak up and disagree with their husband, it's because it's important to them. So even if she gets her way 100% of the time, she's only winning 5 or 10% of the disagreements. It's just that the husband doesn't even know it because she never mentions it.
I am raising my hand.
Okay.
I mean, these sound like transient little disagreements about, things that may not be humongous. But I'm thinking in my family growing up, I'm pretty convinced my father had a drinking problem, and nothing my mom could do was going to change that. And so it was a bone of contention, of course. And it wasn't just like, she prevailed because she was the woman. He had a drinking problem, So, and ultimately contributed to his demise. But so I wondered how things work in situations like that.
Well, you have to deal with the drinking problem.
Yeah, well,
Most people, I suspect your father among them, would say, I don't really have a problem. I'm not an alcoholic. I just enjoy drinking. So I'll say, show me, prove it to me. Don't drink anything for 2 weeks. And if you can go 2 weeks without a drink, I'll believe you. And if they can't, then they have to go to AA. And in fact, if there's violence involved, and often there is, and or any kind of abuse, then you have to address that directly.
yeah, no violence.
So Sasha,
Hey, wait a second. Who? I see a hand waving in the background.
yeah. Go ahead. Sasha?
I think we were just going to sign off.
Oh, okay.
Say goodbye is all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're waving goodbye.
See y'all.
What?
Okay.
Other,
Thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Interesting, Jonathan.
That was very good.
So who gets the cookies?
Horsemen's. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. It was very interesting.
Very good. Everything.
Very nice, Jonathan. Very nice.
You know,
Thank you. That was interesting.
my
Bye, y'all.
So have all the husbands learned to give in all the time?
Thanks, Jonathan. That was great.
I think Vicky said yes, dear. Vicky, I think, gets the cookies. Is that okay with everybody?
Oh, I thought Horseman's got the cookies.
There are a lot of cookies. There's enough for both. Save me.
sometime we can take a look at it. Jonathan,
Yes.
we can bring your computer over and let's take a look at it.
Right now. Okay. Okay.
That's good.
I could have listened even longer.
Yeah.
What he didn't tell you was all the homework he gives.
Wait. What, Ann? What didn't I say?
You didn't talk about the homework you give these people.
Oh, wow.
Homework. Oh my.
Those of you who stuck around. Okay. Well, one of the homework assignments is to make I statements. We often get in trouble by making you statements. You do this, you do that. You're always this way. You're never this. And a you statement is experienced as an attack. And you become defensive and the conversation spirals down. So often for homework, I'll give the couple the challenge to make I statements. I feel unloved when you don't pay attention to me, when you don't do what you said you're going to do. I feel neglected when you do this. And that takes responsibility for how you feel. And the other person can say, no, you don't feel that way.
So Jonathan, do you feel neglected when I don't call you?
I'm the one that's always calling you just to be sure you're not neglected. I never feel neglected by you, Brad. You're terrific.
That was great, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
You did? Okay. Well, I hope it was interesting.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Think of what you're going to talk about next year.
Well, if Don and Linda are still married.
Oh, yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You have to tell them that Linda and I made up everything. None of it was true.
Well, some of it was.
Hey, shut up.
But when we were practicing, though, we kept laughing. I said, Don, we can't laugh.
I kept telling them, don't tell the truth. Don't tell real problems. Make some up.
So, yeah.
Funny. Very good.
Okay. I'm already over.
That's a background they put up so that we all think they're in some wonderful island. But I think they're just across the path.
What? No, who are you talking to me?
Yeah. The palm tree and the ocean behind you. I know it's a.
Yeah, I can't get rid of it. I don't know what to do to get rid of it. Permanently.
Do that to us, you know.
Whoa, there's a little arrow next to the video thing.
Shahar can fix it for you. Just have him come over and fix it.
Yeah. He says
Olga was on.
he doesn't do it.
Olga.
Yeah, maybe.
Go to the little
Her name is
carrots by video.
Hi.
Yeah. Go to that little stop video where there's a little arrow and it'll tell it. Mine says choose virtual background.
Yeah.
Go to video settings.
Virtual background, and then
You can choose none or one of the other options.
video settings. Let's see.
No, see?
I don't have many options. How do you get more options?
I don't like them. They make you look like a cutout.
Above video settings, it says choose
Tricia,
virtual
you
background.
made the grouping.
Yeah.
That looks
Well,
like
do you see
grass.
virtual background?
Looks like my backyard.
Some computers don't support the virtual backgrounds.
I don't see any return to regular background here.
Yes, that's what you
Click
want.
on none. So
I've only got a choice of 3. It's not very much.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't have much of virtual either.
Some computers you can actually choose your own photo, improve, but I couldn't do it on mine.
That's what my colleagues do.
yeah. So this is my photo.
Okay, here, none.
Yeah.
There we go.
Very good.
Great.
Oh, look, I remember Luke had that halo on his head.
You might
Well,
have
that was
to.
pretty fancy, Luke's halo.
You might have to update your Zoom platform.
Right.
What does it mean mirror my video?
Father, it just flips left to right.
To Brand's head down.
Brand, what are you doing now?
Who's doing that to you?
Yeah.
You're doing it to yourself?
Yes,
How did you do it?
that's cute.
Oh, he's just tricky.
Flo,
But
Flo, do you see on the counter behind me there are books?
yes,
Can you read the titles, or are they backwards like in a mirror?
I can't see to tell you.
It doesn't look backwards to me.
Can't read them though.
I can't.
The third from the bottom, 1949.
Family Crucible. Yeah, that's the.
That's what the mirror does. It makes it look the way it should rather than the way it would in a mirror.
I see. Okay, thank you for.
How did you do that?
How come you get more choices? I only have 3.
Well, you don't have, and you don't have a Macintosh.
That's true. I don't.
Well, see, you're really missing out, Anne.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know,
I
Jonathan
realize.
has 2 Macintoshes. If he was a nice husband, he would give you one of them.
I have one actually. I just don't know how to use it. And I do PC.
See what I deal with? I've always done it that way.
Got it.
All right. I think I'm leaving now.
We're gonna go as well.
Before you need some therapy, eh?
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Here's all my notes and my
Brand, I'm coming over.
dialogue. Hold on.